All right. We are live. Wonderful. Hello. Hello, everyone. Let me just check settings really fast. Looks good. Audio looks good. Perfect. Perfect. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Hello. Happy weekend. Thank you all for being here. We'll get started in just a moment. As always, I like to give it 30 seconds or so to let people get the notification and come on in. I've already got a number so far. Welcome. Hello, P. Hello, Blessed. Jenny, Becca, Chi-chan. Hi. Northwest Wind. Hello, sir. Oh, this is going to be good. Greatly looking forward to it. Hope everyone's having a lovely Sunday, a lazy Sunday, or Monday, the start of the week, wherever in the world you may be. Let me see here. What's up, John? Welcome. Welcome, sir. Tracy, hi. Oh, fantastic. Mimi. Oh, got some new faces, got familiar faces. This is going to be good. Oh, I'm already excited. We've already got a number of good questions here. This is going to be a good one. Fantastic. Let me just check something really quick, guys. One moment. Close that out. And there we go. Chapped lips. Gotta love the wintertime. Hope everyone starts the new year is going amazing. And you know what? Let's go ahead and jump on in. I know we're going to have people joining, obviously, throughout, but let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. Welcome to another live Q&A. Every Sunday we come here, we hang out, and just kick back, talk about the law, talk about manifestation, and answer questions so that you guys ultimately, my aim and the whole reason why I'm here in this channel is so that each and every one of you can glean more information and understanding and have better belief around the law, so that clearing up any misconceptions, anything that you're curious about, so that you have better ability to apply this in your life and start seeing the changes that you desire to see. And not terribly much to announce as far as announcements go, or anything to note before we jump in. I do still have my discount going on for my masterclasses and workshops. Any of my self-learning courses are currently on sale. Start of the new year. That is going for 30% off. That is good through this coming Tuesday. So we've only got a couple days left. So if you have not seen and you've been interested in purchasing a course, check it out below. All the information and resources are down in the description box. Also more information about all of that. And yeah, on that note, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, thank you, John. Thank you, John. I'm trying to see if you did you have a question? I'm trying to see if you had a question. Maybe I missed it somewhere. I'll be keeping eyes out for sure. But thank you. Thank you for that. All right, going back up. Oh yeah, caffeine. Caffeine. Oh, P's got a really good question. Hi, Missy. You always talk about the 3D moving slower, but isn't that just a limiting belief that we can change like anything else? No hate, just being curious. Yeah, no, absolutely. And no offense taken. You're good. You're good. That's a really good question. And when I talk about the 3D and how it moves slower. Yes, of course, just like with anything, like we can transcend any of that. So we're not like bound to the rules of linear time. It just feels that way. When I speak about 3D moving slower, it's how we've been sort of conditioned to see it. It's usually how we believe it and perceive it, basically. I mean, that said, are we able to make a leap, make a move, rather long jump, or you know, a shift that will take us somewhere physically different? Yeah, yeah. When we say anything is possible, that it means quite literally, literally anything's possible. So I'm not speaking in that we are bound by the rules of linear time, because that's not true. But for most people, and just how deeply conditioned we are to it, it's going to appear that way. It's going to feel that way. We're going to have, you know, our beliefs and assumptions may be in line with this idea of linear time, because time is most certainly a sticking point for a lot of people, and understandably so. So I bring that up to say it appears like a time lag because of our relationship with linear time. I can go somewhere in imagination instantly, right? I don't have to wait to go somewhere in imagination to have an experience in internally in imagination. Whereas here, it appears like things are going to be happening in a series of events. It's not going to feel for most people very natural to close your eyes and open your eyes and you're somewhere else entirely in the physical world. So yeah, just to be clear, um, yeah, it's all conditioning, basically. Hi, Missy. My fortune cookie told me I'm in a parallel reality. A fortune cookie? That's wow. I consider this BBL. My question is the purge and ego backlash the same thing? Is that also a limiting belief? Good question. And I might need to make another video about beliefs, because a belief is just a state of consciousness. It's not in and of itself fact or law. Like any belief is just that. It's just an assumption. It's just the degree in which we think something is true with or without proof, right? So, and the way that most people are conditioned, we, even though the belief may not be true or fact, the way that we typically operate is as if it were a law. Even Neville will talk about how, you know, man, you know, his beliefs, man's beliefs operate as if they were laws. Like it's going to feel very difficult for us to go against a belief that we hold. Um, so just to be clear, and I should make a video talking more about beliefs, but beliefs are just states of consciousness. They're just rooms in the mansion, so to speak. You know, many mansions. But as far as purge and ego backlash, I mean, ego backlash is sort of the ego defense mechanism, so to speak, because we do all have this ego. We have this construction self. We all have this self concept, right? This idea of self with the beliefs and assumptions, the stories, the circumstances, the memories, you know, all of these things that construct this individual self that we believe so much that we are. And if we begin to move very far outside of these beliefs, if we aim to make significant changes, the defense mechanism gets set in. And this is why, for example, it can be very difficult sometimes. It could feel very difficult to make a change, even one that we consciously want. Why New Year's resolutions are so damn hard to keep, and you know, so on and so forth. The purge, if I remember correctly, is a bunch of stuff coming up to get rid of. If, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I've read anything about the purge. But yeah, Now I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it's yeah, the like getting everything out before something good is about to come in. I'm not I don't entirely remember, but essentially that ego backlash is just working almost as like a homeostasis, right? The ego is always aiming to like get us back to the place that feels most normal and natural and familiar to us. The ego loves status quo. It loves familiarity. It loves to go where it feels safe. It feels known. Like we don't have anything that's unpredictable there. What the ego fears more than anything is the unknown, right? So it's almost like this homeostasis. And if we that's why it seems like after we make a significant change to self, after we have perhaps a breakthrough or an epiphany, it seems like we've made a considerable progress. It's not uncommon to shortly after experience almost like the opposite. It's almost like a reverse happens, and then it can be very overwhelming if we don't know what is taking place and why why it is occurring this way. But yeah, um, definitely check out the video I made about ego backlash a few videos back if you haven't seen it yet. That should hopefully clear it up a bit better. Going back up. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. When manifesting him, when did it click that your husband in imagination was the real one? At what point did you need to think about 3D him and 4D him as separate people? Good question, Northwest Wind. I'm trying to make sure I understand correctly. When did it click that your husband in imagination? Well, it did click that what I was experiencing in imagination that was real. Um, it wasn't fantasy. That was a huge epiphany that I had, and the realization that what we are experiencing in imagination isn't any less real than what we experience in 3D, right? Um, I don't I didn't see them as separate though because they're not. So I'm a little bit confused about the second part of the question. Think about 3D him and 4D him as separate people. Well, because it is one and the same. Imagination is, I mean, that's Neville used to say all the time. Imagination is the only reality, right? Consciousness is the only reality, what we are conscious of. So I didn't see him as separate. I saw that I experienced that version of him, that reality in imagination, right? Felt it to the point of conviction. It felt very, very real. It felt incredibly natural. It felt just incredible. And coming back to the 3D, it comes with that understanding that it's already been completed because I already had this experience. It's already been done. Like it's you can almost think of it like a selection. Like this is my experience, this is what I select, and this is what must play out because the 3D is it's just a mirror. It's just a mirror. Always just a mirror. But yeah, if I misunderstood the question, let me know. But I didn't see the 3D and 4D as separate because they're because they're not. Hello, I'm a pineapple. Missy, I have a success story. This week I've been having self-talk related to lucid dreams, and I've been having lucid dreams every day since. Awesome, Chi-Chan. That is awesome. That's what we wanna see. That is incredible. Keep going with it. Keep going with it. Hi, Missy. How do we come to peace with truly opposing 3D? Good question. How do we truly come to a place of peace despite the 3D? That comes when we have the faith and understanding that we're not the 3D self, that we're not the limitations of 3D. We're not this physical body and the limitations of this body. We're not the stories and all of the circumstances. We're not any of those things. And when we truly come to realize that and understand that, it is an overwhelming sense of peace. It is just peace. That because I am not bound to the 3D circumstances, because I am not limited by anything except my own assumption, which I can change. Yeah, yeah. That's when you come to a place of peace. Great questions so far, you guys. Sorry, trying to go back to my spot. How to keep balance and not start to feel superior to other people when you're starting the journey and learning you are the operant power. Good question. Yeah, how when I first stumbled on these teachings back in 2012, I was a bit it made me uncomfortable, this idea that, I'm God, I'm this operant power. Like that didn't sit with me at first until I understood what that meant. Um, that's to say, like Missy Renee isn't God and isn't like, I'm not queen of everything and everyone else is a peasant. Like that's not how it works. Um, it's it is the I am that is God. It is the awareness of being that is God. This sense of self that everybody has. Everybody has this awareness. Everybody is aware of the fact that they exist, right? Everybody is conscious. Everybody says, I am, because that is God. So it's not that we're like, I'm superior in my reality, that I'm superior to everyone, because everyone is connected. Everything is God. It's all things. It's all people. It's everything that you can conceive, everything that you can experience with your internal or external senses. It's all God, right? This is just, in my reality, this is sort of like God looking through the lens of Missy Renee, like this one perspective. But that certainly is not meaning that I am superior to anyone. No. I hope that makes sense. But yeah. How do I know my sats is enough slash working? Good question. You'll know that sats is working. You'll know that this is working when you notice a change in self. Like you'll notice more and more that you are showing up differently, like you're starting to feel differently. You'll notice that perhaps there's less intrusive thoughts, you're having less reactions from the old state of consciousness, right? You're not reacting and thinking and being from the same place that you were before. Um, it's an internal gauge. That's what we really want to look to, is how we are feeling and what we are believing and identifying with internally. That's how we know. Basically, you'll notice a change in your mental diet. Yeah. And sure enough, with that inner change comes reflection without. If you're manifesting something big and want to manifest other smaller things in the meantime, how can you do this without feeling like sabotaging the big 40 thing and still living in the M for that? Um, so how do we, if we're manifesting something big, but we want to, well, I mean, first off, we're always manifesting, right? Like, this is something that we're doing all the time. We're just learning how to become more conscious and deliberate of it. But we can absolutely imagine for and experience multiple things at once. Um, I mean, as long as none of the smaller things are in conflict with the bigger desire. If you're just talking about things to sort of build your faith or have fun with this, you can absolutely put your attention on these other things as well. It's not that we have to always have our attention on the bigger thing, otherwise it's not going to manifest. I know that sometimes it's a fear that if we take our attention away from the big goal or the big thing, that it's not going to work and it's not going to that's not true. That's not true. No, you can absolutely be doing multiple things. You can be, because we're naturally imagining different things in different areas of our life throughout our day to day, right? So, a big part of it is having trust, having faith that nothing can come in the way and sabotage the end state. Like once that seed is planted, it's done. We can turn our attention to something else. Yeah. Oh, sorry, trying to find my spot. What is your opinion on Ho'oponopono? I love that meditation. I think it's a fantastic meditation. And for those who might not know, Ho'oponopono is it's a Hawaiian meditation for forgiveness. It's a way of helping yourself to forgive and overcome, hurtful things of the past, things that may be still very upsetting, or things that you know we want to heal from, so to speak. And it's a beautiful meditation, and it can be really helpful if you feel like there were things that were really upsetting, and things that perhaps we need forgiveness for ourselves or for somebody else. Yeah, it's a beautiful meditation. Do I have to become the typical independent person to get SP, or can we become partners without that? I'm curious. We don't have to condition. We don't have to condition the desire in any way. Uh, to say that we have to become some type of independent person. I think you're talking about societal conditioning, like societal beliefs around like you need to be like Miss Independent who don't care or whatever, or you know, or Mr. Independent, in order to get your person back. No, no. All that we are doing here is practice with going to the end, practice with going to the having the experience and imagination from the place of it's already finished. It's already finished. So that version of you in that reality, what would that feel like? What would that be like? What would you be doing? Like that version of you, you're kind of slipping into that role in imagination. And that's it. We don't need to bring any other conditions of the 3D with us into those imaginal acts. Yeah. I am good. How are you guys? Hello, Cinnamon Boy. Hi, Missy. Sorry I haven't been on in the past 2 lives. I've been busy with a manifestation. I think I told you a few months ago, but I manifested my friend coming to visit. Oh, yay. Oh, that is awesome. And welcome back. It's good to see you, Danielle. Frank, hello, sir. Hello. Hello, Missy. I persisted the entire week with revision. I feel so much less guilty now. Good. Good. That's wonderful. And revision can be such an incredible tool. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, keep going. Is it really possible to revise any bad memory with SP? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can revise anything. Anything. Memories are just imaginal acts. That's it. We can change them. I have an exam on Tuesday. I haven't studied at all. Any advice? See you getting the results of the exam back, acing it. Like see that grade on the report. Like go there in your mind. You've already aced it. And congrats. First time. I'd like to know if we can only manifest for others in our reality or if it also helps them in theirs. Mm. In our reality, well, so we absolutely want to be manifesting for others. I mean, we should want to, ideally, because that way, as we move into different states, we experience different versions of them, and then naturally, we would want to experience the version where they are happy and fulfilled. It goes with that saying, but yeah, it absolutely helps them as much as it helps us. If I'm understanding the question correctly. Always a good thing to do, a good habit to get into. And typically speaking, because there may be less attachment when it comes to other people and their desires, you know, we may not have such a strong attachment, so it usually comes with much more ease. Your subconscious mind knows exactly what you want, right? Whether it's specific or written on a paper. Yes. Yes. Your subconscious mind is you. Your subconscious mind is you. It knows what you want because you know what you want, right? there's kind of a bizarre concept, and I admitted, I certainly had these questions myself, and when I was still very new at this, I had the idea that, you know, oh, I got to make sure my subconscious mind is on the same page and it knows what I want. It knows. It knows because that is you. That is your mind. Yeah. And in fact, we want to learn to trust that. Yeah. Rest assured, your subconscious mind knows. It knows everything. Hi, Missy. When we desire something, we usually hear it's due to our self concept that we don't have it. But isn't the fact that we desire more of an indication that we know we are worthy of it? Good question. Um, well, absolutely. If we have a desire for something, it is an experience that we are meant to have, right? That's the whole point. Otherwise, we we wouldn't have desires. Um, if 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 something is not materializing or something is absent in 3D, it's due to us being in the state of separation. Like we're aware of not having it, right? We're aware of not being, not having, versus awareness and the state of having or being, right? So it doesn't really have anything to do with worthiness. I mean, yes, sometimes if we have a belief that we're not worthy of this thing, then that can certainly um, make it tricky or difficult to live in the end, to maintain that end. But it's more that when it comes to self-concept, that's just your beliefs and assumptions and your what you identify as what you believe to be true about yourself and other people. Um, so it's our own awareness of the absence of it. We continue to say, I don't have it, I miss it, I want it, versus I already have. I am already this person who experiences, right? I hope I'm making sense, and I hope that answers the question. But it's not always due to the worthiness aspect. It's for whatever reason we are identifying more with the state of not having than the state of having. Yeah. Find him a spot. Good question so far today, you guys. Oh, thank you for the super chat. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Hi, Missy. Got movement last week and now anxious and excited to see more. How can I contain my excitement and be patient when hoping for more to unfold? Good question. And I know that sometimes it can feel challenging when on like when we're starting to see things happen, when we're starting to see some momentum, uh, the changes going on in 3D, it can be easy to get wrapped up back in the 3D. Um, this more than anything else, this is a practice of coming back within, like practicing directing the attention back within, because everything is us pushed out, right? Everything is us pushed out. So everything is first internally made external. So if we're catching ourselves or noticing that we are giving all of our attention to 3D, or we're feeling nervousness, all of these things are just feedback. It's just feedback into what state you've been occupying, like what beliefs and assumptions may still be there, um, which is fine. We want to continue to just practice going within, practice giving to ourself what it is that we desire. And we should begin to notice that less and less we're gonna lose that sense of like excitement, or like looking forward to it, and the relief and satisfaction of already being, right? And so we be mindful, like it's it's certainly okay to be excited. It's something to be excited about, but we just want to observe and just be mindful if we are catching ourselves perhaps getting nervous, or looking for indications, or wondering what's going to happen. Just continue to come back to the end. Continue to go back to that morning, noon, and night, as Neville would say, until it feels so solid that you can walk with complete conviction, because for you it is already so. Can we manifest an SP if we haven't been in a relationship before? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't have to be somebody that you've previously had a relationship with. No. Can you go over revision again? It's to feel what if, but is it also to eventually believe that what if actually happened? I don't understand the connection between what if and reality. Good question. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I would definitely check out especially the last video that I made about revision, where I do go a little bit more into this, specifically. But the way that we want to approach revision, especially if it feels like when doing revision we're lying to ourselves, that's one of the biggest points of resistance for people, is that it feels like we're lying to ourselves, like we're trying to coerce ourselves into believing that this other thing happened versus what we know happened, right? So we wanted, if that is the case, if we're noticing a lot of that resistance, we want to sort of change the perspective, or change how we are approaching this. Because when you allow yourself to just imagine, for the sake of like, what if this had happened instead? Like, what if things had gone in this way, right? You're allowing yourself to go into that experience in imagination without the trying to force yourself to believe it part, right? So it takes away that efforting, and that willpower that we accidentally and usually put into this. Because if like just having the experience of it and continuing to go back to it, that will in and of itself begin to change the memory. And I explained in the last video I made about revision that with memories, when we recall a memory, like there is a window of about 1 or 2 hours where that memory is essentially unstable, which means that it's malleable, like it's moldable, it's changeable. So we actually do have an ability to sort of reshape this memory if we allow ourselves to imagine something differently. Like that's what's going to start to stick, and then it sort of reconsolidates and comes back down into the memory banks. But that's sort of how we can approach it in a way that should ideally bring with it less resistance. So just allowing yourself to get to the place where we can imagine this, alternate outcome, or this alternate thing that we would have wanted to have happen, letting ourselves experience that, that's what's going to start to take place as the memory versus the undesirable thing that happened. I hope that makes sense. Definitely check out that video. Cannabis helps me get into the state of the wish fulfilled. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, whatever helps. Whatever helps. I have experienced not being chosen. Thank you for the super chat, Jenny. Thank you. I have experienced not being chosen since birth, and I realize I manifested that my entire life. I want to revise, but I don't know where to begin. Good question. So the wonderful thing about revision is that we don't necessarily have to just revise events that did happen, right? So it's not that we have to try to find a specific event, or if you don't know where to start, if it feels overwhelming, like where do I begin? You can construct a new memory. You can construct you can revise in a sense that like you're creating new memories, right? Memories where you were chosen, memories where you were prioritized. Imagine yourself, when you were younger, maybe you were always the one selected in class. Maybe your parents always supported you with everything you wanted to do. Maybe, new relationships in adolescence, those first love relationships in adolescence, you were always treated amazingly. You were always prioritized. You were always, put first before anything else. You can construct these new memories. You can create new memories. Like, you were the popular it girl in school, like whatever you want it to be, whatever you want it to be. And that's the beauty here. Yeah. So if you can't think of any specific events that you want to change, like you can also create new ones. Happy Sunday on a Sunday afternoon. I hope you're doing well, and same with everyone here in the chat. Thank you, Mohammed. Same to you, sir. Same to you. Thank you for being here. Can a single decision to take action be effective in changing self-concept, especially if you are wetting your pants but take action anyway? Thanks. Oh, goodness. Can a single decision to take action be effective in changing self-concept? I mean, if it feels like something you are moved to do, if it feels like something that you like, maybe you're scared of the idea, but you feel so strongly that this is going to be beneficial, this is going to be helpful for you, like taking that leap, so to speak. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if that's going to allow you for the experience of something that will help you to change that self-concept. Yeah, if I'm understanding the question correctly. But yeah, if you're feeling moved to do it, or if you're feeling moved from a place of like, this is something that, from the evolved version of me, from the ideal version of me, this is what I would be taking, this is what I would be doing. Yeah, take that leap of faith. Hi, Missy. If I don't affirm for a couple of days, will my SP slowly go back to his previous state? No. I mean, in and of itself, no. If we notice that perhaps we're starting to have more fearful thoughts again, if we notice a change in our actions and reactions, then, I recommend bringing yourself back to the end, coming back to the state of the wish fulfilled. If it feels like we might be the ones moving out of that state, yeah, I would recommend bringing yourself back to the end. But that said, you don't have to like continue to affirm in order to make your manifestation, because it's not the technique itself that is going to make something happen, right? The technique is just a tool to help us maintain a new state of consciousness, to maintain a new belief, a new assumption, right? To help us better like live in this new conception of self. So yeah, like but as long as if you are feeling good, if you are feeling confident, if you're feeling satisfied, like you don't have to continue to force yourself to affirm or anything like that. No. Hi, Missy. I think affirming is overrated. I prefer to affirm mentally when looping a scene and feel the touch, the colors, the smell. What do you think? I mean, it's ultimately going to be down to personal preference and personal choice. Like everybody's imagination is different. Everybody has, their own unique ways of imagining. Some people are more visual, some people are more kinesthetic, like, you know, sense of touch. Some people are more auditory, so they have inner conversations and hear things. It's going to be different, but I mean, for myself, I absolutely love to bring in more of the senses into the imaginal act. I like to be involved in whatever I am imagining. Certainly, yeah. Yeah. Could you showcase examples to how to utilize your mental diet slash inner conversations? Likewise, how do you redirect unideal thoughts using this technique without battling it? Good question. Yeah. Damn, that's loud. Sorry, guys. That woke me up. Showcase examples of how to utilize your mental diet. So I mean, what we're doing essentially is observation. Mental diet is observation of not just the thoughts that you're having, but how you react to them, how you interpret them, like what are you perceiving with like the events around you? Are you perceiving them in a certain way? What are you noticing coming up for you? The feelings, all of those things, your moods, your reactions, all of that. That's what, just being more and more aware of it, basically. Um, for myself, it really is just that. Like I'm obviously through the years of coming into this practice, I am keenly aware of what my mind is doing and where it is going for most of the time. I mean, of course, like every human being, we can get caught up in our head for a second, but I've certainly gotten much, much, much better at being from the place of the like more from the place of the observer versus the one who is identifying with any of the thoughts that come in. Yeah. So with things like focused attention meditation helped immensely. And a meditation and meditation practice in general is something that I cannot recommend enough. For this practice, especially, and with these teachings, meditation really goes hand in hand, 100%. But I mean, with that has like I have become just more aware of what I'm feeling and thinking and how I am interpreting things throughout the day to day. Um, and yeah, a lot of times like I will have like conscious and deliberate inner conversations like for things that I do desire. I will have pockets throughout the day where I'll just allow myself a moment to get lost in that imaginal act and have the conversation, hear the other person that I want to communicate with, confirming what it is I want to experience. And that doesn't need to be something that's like, a big, huge ritualistic thing. Again, you can do it in pockets throughout your day. It literally just takes a handful of seconds. As far as redirecting unideal thoughts, this is actually something that over time, and it really was through a lot of trial and error, I stopped fighting them. I stopped fighting the negative. What helped me more than anything when it comes to redirection of thoughts and negative thoughts, the first instinct is to try to push back against it. The first instinct, once we become aware that we're, chewing on these negative thoughts and that we're having these negative reactions, the first instinct we have is to try to like push back against it and say, no, 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 that's not true. you know, like, basically launch into like fighting it. And for myself personally, that was the least effective method to take. And what I actually found was when I just observed it, when I just allowed myself to observe and be aware without judgment, without any of the need to like, wrestle with it, I was much better able to get myself into a state of calm. Basically by just saying, this just is. Okay. There's Missy Renee is noticing this feeling of anxiety, frustration, whatever. Missy's noticing that there's a lot of frustration here. Okay. Okay. It just is. It just is. Because I know that that's not who I am. Who I am is the awareness that is aware of these thoughts, is aware of these reactions. I do not have to continue to identify with them, though. And from that place, they would neutralize. So basically, as backwards as it sounds, as counterintuitive as it sounds, by not fighting my thoughts, by not trying to wrestle them or suppress them, they would go away. At the very least, I was much better able to get myself to a place where it felt more neutral, it felt more calm. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. Effectively, stop fighting it. And that alone will help you to redirect it. Do tarot readings repeat back where your mental state is currently at? I mean, everyone and everything is you pushed out. So yeah, if you receive a tarot reading, it's going to be a reflection of you. It's going to be a reflection of the state, just like literally everything is, right? But that said, there's, in my opinion, much more effective ways of finding the state that you're occupying dominantly. Like sometimes people will use tarot as a way to try to figure out what state they're in. We can find out through self-observation. We can find out if we just observe the natural reactions, the natural thoughts, the natural, like what we are naturally believing and identifying with through the day-to-day, like that alone will tell you what state you're occupying. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Anastasia. If you had a chance to meet Neville, what would you tell him? I love that. Thank you. I tell him thank you. How can you persist for so long, but your dreams are not even close to materializing? Oh, I know it can seem incredibly frustrating. When you say that they're not even close to materializing, that would be an assumption right there. Because though things may look a certain way in 3D in this moment, it can quickly change. It can rapidly change. Like we can see a 180 of our circumstances very quickly. So we want to be mindful of like, we're not even close. I know it can feel that way, but that's certainly not actually the case. When it comes to persistence, what we want to do, what we should be doing, and why I stress so often the importance of self-observation and just taking mental note of what we are doing in the day to day? Like, how are we showing up? Are we noticing any kind of change from within? Are we noticing a change to our reactions? Are we noticing a change to the thoughts coming in? Are we still having the same kind of intrusive thoughts? Does it feel like, we want to use the internal gauge, basically. We want to use the internal gauge. Because if it feels like we are still noticing the same thoughts, same things coming up for us day after day inside, and we want to take note of that, right? And redirect the way that perhaps, experiment, play around with different ways of imagining, try other ways of imagining, try things that perhaps, can better help us to like imagine the end and live in the end. Yeah. Because though we don't ever know when things will unfold in 3D, we don't know the how long of that, certainly. But one thing that we can gauge is the length of time that it takes is proportionate to how natural the desire feels, how natural it feels for you. Right? So there's ways that we can gauge and sort of see and like do that internal reflection and, note, are we noticing any change from within? And maybe if not, play around with different ways of imagining, play around with different ways of like how we are approaching this, using less effort, for example, just things like that. Yeah. In your opinion, dear Missy, how long should a manifestation take? A lot of us are months into this, nearly a year. Yeah. Yeah. It's not possible for me to give you a time frame, unfortunately. I wish I could. I wish I could tell you that it's going to take exactly this long. But similar to what I was kind of talking about in the last question, this is why I stress the importance of like practice taking your attention away from 3D and instead placing the attention on the inner world, the inner self. Because if the 3D is a reflection of the inner self, then by gauging the inner self, we can have a better idea of what is going to be reflected, right? But usually what happens, and this certainly happened for me, was I was so caught up with all this crap out here. I was so caught up with looking to the 3D and checking and, wondering if there's going to be any movement, wondering if it's going to be the day today. This is a practice. This is a practice, and we really want to get better at growing awareness of what we are doing internally. Because 95% of the day we're on autopilot. So a lot of the times we might not even be aware of the self and what we are dwelling in and what we are identifying with. So yeah, if it feels like it's been a long time, do some reflection and see where you are within. Yeah. How are we supposed to approach the 3D? Do you just view it as simply temporary, or does that imply not living in the end? Well, the 3D is it's a mirror. It's a mirror of the inner world. It's where we want to be placing the attention is imagination, the fourth dimensional, larger dimensional self, right? Because we can imagine ourselves as anyone, being anyone, doing anything, whatever it is that we desire, we can already have that experience in here. And all of this is just the mirror of what we are doing and thinking and believing in here. That is all. And it's always temporary. The 3D is always temporary. quite literally. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Fred. What if my end is to be married with SP, but it is hard for me to imagine a scene of that? Is it good to affirm slash visualize he came back with me when is supposed to be that I'm living with him in my imagination? Is it good to affirm slash visualize he came back when you're supposed to be living? So just to make sure I understand, your end scene, your desire to be married to SP, but it feels difficult to believe that. So instead, can we affirm or visualize like the reconciliation, the getting back together part, instead of going to the end? If I'm misunderstood, let me know. I think what you're referring to is manifesting in steps. I mean, which we absolutely can. It's not that imagining in steps is gonna be. I know it's usually frowned upon in some cases, and if we are able to go to the end, and the aim and the ideal would be going to the end, but if that feels perhaps too difficult to bridge that, if it feels like that's too outside of the realm of what's possible or anything like that, you can manifest in steps, so to speak. Well, we just want to remember, if that is something that we're going to approach, is to keep going to the next end, right? Like, where it can get messy is if we imagine reconciliation and then it happens, and then our attention is wrapped back up in the 3D, and we don't continue to imagine, we don't continue to go back to the next end, whatever that next ideal looks like. That's what we want to make sure to avoid. But as long as you're aware that we just want to continue to go back in imagination, because honestly, this is something that we should be in the habit of doing anyways. Even after we get our manifestation, after everything in the 3D is just as we want it, we don't ever stop manifesting. That's why I really aim to teach this as something we can incorporate as a lifestyle and get in the habit of doing, so that we're naturally going within and we're naturally imagining and experiencing whatever it is that we desire to experience. Like, by default, we're doing that. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. When we are in the state of the wish fulfilled, does old belief system affect our manifestation? Mm-mm. No. Like, when we're living in the end, it's going to feel a sense of calm. It's going to feel a sense of relief. It's going to feel a sense of satisfaction, right? We may, just through old conditioning and old patterns, we may fall out of that state, obviously accidentally. And if that happens, we just move ourselves back to the end, right? We continue to condition this new state of being until that is the dominant state. That is the dominant belief. That is the dominant assumption. It just feels so unnatural to imagine the complete opposite. Yeah, it certainly can. One thing that, and I probably should make a video about this. One thing that's important to note, and that sometimes we forget, if it feels very difficult to imagine something, if it feels very unbelievable, one thing that will help is if we first focus on getting into the drowsy state. There's a reason that Neville talked so much about the drowsy state and getting into that drowsy state, especially when we're talking about things that feel very difficult to believe, things that we might have a lot of resistance to, things that will, bring up that negative voice in the back of our head, the naysay mind. Um, it's in that drowsy state, it's in that hypnagogic state that we are naturally more shut off from the 3D and more able to interact with the world in imagination. Basically, there's going to be less resistance when we are in that drowsy state, which is why, SATs or even just, a deep meditation it's going to feel much more natural because we're not going to be as tied to the conditions and logic and reason and beliefs of the 3D. Yeah. So don't forget about that. I think sometimes that part gets overlooked a lot. And instead, we're just trying to battle in the day to day. But I'm telling everyone, take advantage of that drowsy state if you're not already doing so. And if you are doing so, continue to do so. But that's the studies that have been done actually show that we are much better able to interact with the imaginal world in that drowsy state, and we're more shut off from the 3D. So, yeah. Absolutely, Northwest Wind. Yeah. Shoot me an email, send it. I understand that SATS is a popular technique, but what if you prefer affirming, scripting, or other methods? Do you have to force yourself to start visualizing because it's the only one that works? No, no. And let me be abundantly clear. It's not that you have to do SATS in order for yourself to manifest. Not saying that. Not saying that. If affirming and scripting or other methods is what works best for you, then by all means, use what works best for you. It's that, like, if you're seeing results and you're feeling better, and like, absolutely. I'm just saying, for, if you are noticing a hard time with going to the end and living to the end, if you're noticing a lot of resistance to it, if you're noticing a lot of pushback to the idea, I would recommend trying it. I would recommend, not overlooking that. So if we trust fully in ourselves, we can trust our intuition instead of relying on the 3D with all the five senses that can distract us. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. That is the entire premise here. We want to break away from our reliance of the physical senses and, needing to see it to believe it, sort of thing, which is how the vast majority of us have been conditioned. When we trust fully in ourselves, we can walk in that faith and conviction despite what the 3D may look like. That's it. Sorry, guys, going back. Trying to find my spot. What are some ways we can make our subconscious more pliable aside from the state of SATS? My conscious mind seems to have guardrails towards a new story of my SP. Yep, yep. Um, it really is when we are in that more relaxed state, those guardrails come down. Again, that's not to say that you have to do SATs in order to see success, but we can play around with meditation. I mentioned earlier that meditation is a fantastic practice, and if it's something that you're not already implementing in your day to day, I would strongly recommend it because it's going to help us naturally become more conditioned and familiar with the drowsy state, along with strengthening, excuse me, along with strengthening our awareness, along with the ability to redirect mental discipline, mental focus. It's it's just a fantastic practice to get into, um, because it is when we're in that more relaxed, drowsy state that the subconscious mind is more open and receptive to impression and suggestion, versus in the day to day where, yeah, we got that guard mind, the logical mind on lock. Yeah, yeah. And I may need to make another video about SATs because I do see, just talking to a lot of people, I know that it's one that can feel difficult to do. It's one that a lot of people can get frustrated with and struggle with, but really the most important thing is first getting relaxed. A lot of times when we struggle with SATs, it's because we're launching into our scene too quickly. Way too quickly. Um, and it does take a little bit of practice getting used to, and that's why if we are bringing in meditation and just learning how to get more and more into that relaxed state in the day to day, it will be helpful. Hi, Missy. I live with my SP, and there are things which trigger me every day. Example, he is often out, and I feel this absence quite a bit. What's the best way to combat this feeling? Revise every day? I mean, I would. I would. It's a really good practice to get into, anyways. Revising the day, how you would have, imagining instead that it went the way that you would have wanted it to go. But especially if we had those days or moments where we felt particularly upset, hurt, frustrated, anything like that. Um, yeah, I would 1000% recommend. Hello, Mina. Do we let go or keep affirming? Good question. So when it comes to affirmations or any technique for that matter, um, like we will naturally, like, once we reach the place of the Sabbath, once impressed, once we have, fully like immersed that imaginal state, merge into that imaginal state, we'll naturally let go. Like detachment is something that happens naturally. It's probably going to feel difficult to try to force ourselves to let go and detach, right? So if we still perhaps are noticing that old story, identification with that old story, then we would want to continue to affirm or visualize, whatever method and way works best for you. Uh, that said, certainly don't want to, like, if we're noticing perhaps like we're getting burned out or it's feeling like a bunch of work, I would let off the whole trying aspect of it for sure. What is the difference actually taking action versus no taking action? I know Neville said don't lift a finger, but what does that mean when you are living in the end to choose any actions? Good question. So when Neville said don't lift a finger, he meant it quite literally. He meant it quite literally. Like, you will be moved. If you need to lift a finger, you will be moved to do so. You're not gonna have to deliberately do something. You're not gonna have to consciously and deliberately take any kind of action. Once in the end, that's when a bridge unfolds for us. That's when, like, the circumstances will arise that we like, it'll be like we're being led, and it will feel effortless. And perhaps you've had experiences like that before where, like, everything just worked out perfectly without even trying, right? Like, a series of events just happened and it was amazing. Like the stars aligned and everything worked out. Yeah, that's the bridge of events basically. And it's not something that we want to try to do by force. Basically, that's God's job. Like, that's that's to the higher self. We give it to the higher self. Like, that's not the conscious ego mind's job to figure out. No way. What made you decide to be a manifestation coach? What are some common mistakes people make that you see in your practice? Great question. So the coaching thing just, it kind of happened. um, several years ago. I think it was probably 2018 or 19. I was talking to a friend and helping her through some of the things that she had been experiencing at that time. Because it's obviously somebody I care about, and somebody that I love. And she was the one that, when she started to see things unfold for her, she said, "Missy, you have a gift for this. You should start talking to other people. Have you considered doing this? Have you considered?" And I had never considered coaching before. I came from the film and television industry, so it was not really anything. But I did know and have this knowing that I want to spread this word. I want to teach people about this. You know, that I have known since coming into this, and how radically it has changed my life. Uh, but the coaching thing just kind of happened from there. It sort of organically unfolded. And what are some of the most common? What's some of the most common mistakes? Um, Too much effort, 3D validation, without question. Because it's something that, of course, we're so conditioned to. Both of those things are something that we're so conditioned to, and because the law is completely opposite of everything that we've been taught and everything that we've come to believe to be true, it can feel very difficult going all in on this and buying that pearl and having faith in the unseen, right? Usually we need some sort of confirmation, we need some sort of validation, we need something to measure if it's working or not. And then, of course, most people are conditioned to believe that we have to work hard, we have to take action, we have to, put in the effort for something that we want. Here, that does not apply. It does not apply. None whatsoever. So yeah, more than anything, the practice is about getting to know and getting familiar with the internal world, the internal self. Yeah. How long should I do revision for? Good question. We want to revise until the new revised memory starts to take place of the old one. So we revise until it's the new memory that comes up for us, right? When we recall the thing that happened, it should be the new one that pops up, and we should begin to forget the old one. It'll become foggy, distant, almost like it happened to someone else. It's a weird feeling. It's hard to describe, but yeah, if you're noticing after you've revised that the old memory is still coming up for you, indication that we probably want to go back and revise a little bit more. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sina. Hi, Missy. I got into an argument with my boyfriend. He told me that I got out of line. I am still imagining him as my husband and even doing Pinterest boards of our wedding and listening to love songs. Is this enough? Um, well, how do you feel is the question. It's always how do I feel? What am I feeling? What am I believing? What am I assuming about this? Um, because it's not the techniques themselves that is going to make something happen. It's how we are perceiving and what we are assuming, right? I would revise anything that was said that was not wanted or ideal. If there was an argument that took place, I would absolutely revise that. Um, and yeah, like if going over the Pinterest boards and listening to the love songs, if those help you to capture that feeling and really immerse yourself in that feeling, then yeah, that's enough. Absolutely. It's what helps you to feel that end state. Like really put yourself in the place of we are married. And does that feel like how does it feel when you imagine that, when you think that, when that comes up for you? Like does it resonate or does it still feel like maybe there's some resistance there or there's some, pushback or uncertainty there? That's the inner gauge that I talk about. How can I work on my self-concept properly? What can be the best technique in your opinion? What do you think is the best way to affirm in first or third person? By the way, I have problems with visualization. Good question. And this isn't so it's a little challenging to answer these questions and like give you the exact technique and because what works for me may not resonate with you, right? Like for example, I love visualizing. Like SATS is my jam. I absolutely love it. But I know that that may not be, it may feel like a struggle for you because, everybody has different ways of imagining. Some people see more in pictures, some people have, thoughts like internal dialogues through the day. Everyone is going to be different. And that's why, I always try to recommend like, number one, take note of how you usually imagine, like how you naturally imagine. Are you more of a visual thinker? Are you more of somebody who has inner conversations? Are you more somebody who like, is more of like a feeling concept kind of person? Um, and use what is already there or what feels most natural. Because the idea is what comes most naturally. We want this to feel as natural as possible. We don't want to feel like we're putting in all this effort and trying to force it and trying to make this thing happen, right? Um, but yeah, working on self-concept is essentially imagining yourself having the experiences that would imply that you are the person you desire to be, that you have the things that you desire to have. And because that's what we're aiming to change. We want to change the beliefs and assumptions we hold to line up with that ideal outcome, what we desire to experience, right? Um, so, because yeah, for myself personally, I was never a huge fan of affirmations. Um, it, so my recommendation, if you do use affirmations, use them in a way that does resonate. Use them in a way that does feel believable. Use them in a way that does help you to capture that sense of having that experience as if you were having it in 3D. Like it should elicit the same response. So it may be, playing around and experimenting with different tools, different techniques, to find what comes most naturally for you. Yeah. All right. Got time for maybe one or two more questions. When it comes to believing that it is done, do you still have to put in work, take steps to get to your goal in 3D, and believe in your manifestation, or is just believing and doing nothing enough? When it's done, it's done. Do nothing. Once in the Sabbath, once it feels complete, there's nothing left to do. As far as consciously, there's nothing left to do. Mm. I know that can feel weird, and that's what I mean. Like it goes against our natural instinct of like needing to work more or work harder or take more action steps. No, no, we don't got to do any of that. It's so lovely to see you too, Blue Star. Sorry, I'm trying to find my spot, guys. I got burned out trying to manifest my SP, so I unfriended him completely and didn't care about the result anymore. And then he came back asking to hang out, but I'm unsure whether to feel indifferent still. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is not an uncommon scenario. They show up when we stop thinking and doing and trying, right? And then that's because we're not we're no longer trying to manifest, and by doing so we take our attention away from the lack of it, right? That's a lot of times, why after we move on or we sort of give up, that person comes back in the picture, essentially because we are detached, like we've detached from everything that was not ideal. Now, that's not to say that we have to like give up and throw in the towel in order to manifest, but note that it was like once you took the attention and directed it somewhere else that he came back in, right? And it's entirely up to you about like if you whether or not you still desire this manifestation, whether or not you desire to go back to the end, I would meditate on that, and see where you're at with everything. But yeah, this is where, we must stop putting in so much effort because it will lead to burnout. Ask me how I know. Hi, Missy. If we do sats, do we have to do the same scene, or can we play with different scenes related to the specific desire? We can, yeah, we can play with different scenes. That's entirely up to you. I know some people prefer to have one scene, and that's their go-to. It's what feels best, and they enjoy doing it. But we can absolutely have multiple scenes if that's what comes more naturally and feels good to us. Yeah. Yeah, there's no right or wrong way in that sense. You guys are the best. Sorry, guys, trying to find something really quick. How would you manifest an SP when you live in the end? Would you just focus on the identity, or would you focus with them in your imagination? I ask because I still don't get the story of Mrs. J.E. Good question. I'm trying to make sure I understand. Focus on the identity? Oh, do you mean just focus on you without them in the scene, or do you need to have them in the scene? No, you can just focus on being the person who is married. It doesn't have to be that you see or are with your person in the imaginal act. It's what we are imagining just implies that we are married. And in the case of the story of Mrs. J.E., she went to sleep every night, twisting a wedding band, like an imaginary wedding band on her finger, and saying, like, isn't it wonderful? I'm Mrs. J.E. And she did that every night. It was simple, but it implied that she was now the wife of of J.E., right? Um, yeah, it's really about the implication. Like when we are imagining, it's from the like we are the version that is already married to this person, not that the person has to be in the scene with us. I hope that makes sense if I understood the question correctly. Absolutely. You guys are so welcome. What if we are not able to visualize? That's okay. That's okay. It's certainly not that we have to visualize in order to manifest. We are already manifesting. So even if you're not particularly great with visualizing per se, I used to be terrible with with visualizing. I was terrible at it. Um, so it is something that through practice you can strengthen just like a muscle, but you can also, I mean, you can use affirmations. You can use, going more general. You can use, if the sense of sight isn't the strongest, you can use hearing, right? Imaginal conversations, inner conversations. You can use the other imaginal senses, sense of touch, and even if it's not like crystal clear in your mind as far as the visual picture, as long as you have the idea and know what the scene is implying and you're able to feel into it, that's all that matters. That is all that matters. 3D is tough to ignore when we're surrounded by it. I find it exhausting at times. I'm just pressing on. I get glimmers of improvement sometimes. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It certainly can feel challenging when the 3D is showing us the exact opposite of what we are desiring, what we are imagining. That's, yeah. And that's why this is a practice. And in every sense of the word, that this is a practice. Like taking these teachings, applying them to your life, what you desire to experience. I mean, number one, it's going to look different for everyone, but it's also going to be, especially when we're imagining something that seems in such stark contrast with the current circumstances, it can certainly feel challenging. And that's okay. That's where the idea of persistence comes in. That's where persistence comes in. Not that we have to like bulldoze ourselves and like, continue to fight our way through, but it's just the idea that yeah, we're gonna stumble sometimes, we're gonna seemingly fall back sometimes, we're gonna be triggered by 3D at times. Like that's going to happen to virtually everybody on this journey. And that's okay. And despite that, you can still turn things around. You can still, like, whatever the circumstances, it doesn't matter because it's not final. Because once we change in here, all of this has to follow. It has to. That's quite literally the law. But it is a journey. It is a practice. You will find, like you said, you will get glimmers. You will get inspiration. You will start to see and start to notice, start to be aware of the change that's taking place. That does happen, and it must. Thank you for the super chat, Jess. Thank you. I got into an argument with my boss. Any advice? Oh, boo. Revise. Revision. 1000%. And that goes for anything that shows up in the 3D that's not ideal. Imagine instead that the two of you, whatever happened, imagine instead that it was civil, it was cordial, it was, something much more ideal. And I would go back to that. If especially if it feels like something like you find yourself ruminating or you find yourself stressed about it, continue to go back to the revised instance. How would you have wanted that to go instead? And continue to go back to there. Yeah. Do I have to see it or hear it in sets? Feeling it seems just as effective. Yeah. Yeah. No, it doesn't have to be that you see a clear picture or all of that. It's the feeling that we're ultimately after. The whole point of the techniques is to help revoke a response, like invoke a response, right? A feeling. That's the key. Feeling is the secret. That's it. You guys are so welcome. You are so welcome. When you look at the things you fear, what do you do? I understand I fear my SP not coming back because I believe that. But what do I do because living in the end isn't getting rid of the fear? Good question. Um, there's different things that we can. So one of the things that happens on this journey is we start to become more aware of the fact that we're not these fears and these things that we've identified, like, or we're not the beliefs and assumptions. And I know, yes, we may hear that, we may like understand intellectually what that means, but truly get to a place where you know from experience that you're not any of these beliefs and assumptions. You're not these fears. Like, that's not inherently part of who you are. Just who you are actually is awareness, unconditioned consciousness that is just conditioned by all of the things of the 3D and the beliefs and all that stuff. Um, things like detachment, self-inquiry, things that help you to experience the peeling back the layers of self-concept and all of these things that we've identified with can really help with that, helping to see and experience the fact that we're not any of these fears. And it's not something that we must continue to identify with. No, no, not at all. Is it okay to feel anxiety? I feel like I'm hindering movement because of the fear of him finding other girls or not coming back, even though I'm working on self concept. I mean, absolutely, it's normal. It's normal at times to feel anxiety, have moments of anxiety. Yeah. Um, once we become aware of it, once we notice that this is happening, number one, I would just, you know, breath work, breathing exercises, something to help naturally alleviate the naturally alleviate the fear. The physiological response. It's going to help if we can sort of switch off that fight or flight response where the anxiety is stemming from and help get into a place of calm. So, going into a meditation, taking a moment to take some breaths, some deep breaths in through the belly, just help ourselves get to a more neutral place first. But do we have moments where we feel anxiety? Absolutely, we do. That's normal. It's a completely normal thing that happens on this journey. I would maybe, if you haven't already, also make sure that you are testing the law, building faith in the law, building trust in the law, because that is going to naturally alleviate some of the things that you're describing. Especially when it comes to everyone is you pushed out, right? Because if we trust and know that everyone is us pushed out, then we also know that there's no such thing as competition. That's not a real thing, right? So right now, make sure that you are building faith, like you are observing and being aware of the connections between imagination and the 3D to continue building your faith. And yeah, in those moments of anxiety, just help yourself to first and foremost alleviate that. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to beat it up. Don't try to, wrestle the subconscious mind into submission. Just first and foremost, help yourself to come down, help yourself to relax until you get to a place where it feels more calm. Yeah. That does go away. I promise. That I do promise. Oh my goodness. And on that note, you guys, unfortunately, I do have to get going. Wonderful questions today. Amazing questions today. Oh, wait. Oh, was there a super chat? Thank you for the super chat. Okay, really quick, since I just noticed that. Curious about your client, Haley, and if she met her SP in October. Good question. There will be an update coming soon. That's all I'm going to say. Keep on the lookout for that, guys. But in the meantime, Please all do take care. Be well. And thank you again for joining me. I hope to see you here next week. My apologies if I did not get to your question, but rest assured, I come here every week. So hope to see you again. In the meantime, as always, take care, be well, much love. Never forget how powerful you are. Bye, guys.